Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. Welcome to the GDC West 2016 International Business Case Presentation. First off, I just want to give a huge thanks to our judges. So we have Gary Vickers from EMCO, Josh Lawson from Scotiabank, Michael Kozar from Federated Cooperatives Limited, Kenneth Coates from Johnson Shoyama, Graduate School of Public Policy, Wayne Brownlee from Potash Corp, and Carolyn Tastad from P&G. So competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show time cards at various intervals to indicate the remaining time and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking will be permitted from the audience at any time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university, and we ask that the audience exit the room immediately following the question and answer period. So competitors, you may begin when you're ready.
We've all been there. You're in a rush to get somewhere, and you're stuck at a train. You finally get past that train, and not 3 blocks later, you've hit construction, and then a red light, and it just feels like you're hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. This appears to be the case with your company as well sometimes. You are so eager and ready to expand, but you have this contract with very strict policies, and it's just holding you back from doing so. Good afternoon. My name is Miranda, and these are my colleagues Emily and Victoria, and we are Regal Consulting. Today, we're here to talk to you about how to proceed with your international expansion opportunity, and our recommendation going forward is to negotiate your suggested contract and obtain that winning bid for your expansion. And we believe the impact of this will be to establish you for that future prosperity and achieve excellence. We have an agenda for you. Please feel free to follow along at any time during our presentation. I'll now pass things off to Emily to go through our problem for you.
Thank you. The primary issue that we identified for your organization is how should Granite proceed with their expansion opportunity. There's a huge opportunity, and we want to help you succeed in this. Some secondary issues that we identified with this is the perceived bribes. Now, these could cause legal issues, financial hardship, and there is some ethical implications with this, and this is something that needs to be addressed. Additionally, the competition for the bid, there are 2 main competitors in the industry besides yourself, and there's a decision that must be made about how to approach this bid very quickly, and so time is also a factor within the competition aspect, as well as the agreement structure. The agreement that your organization has with Flight is structured in a way that is not optimal for your business, and we'd like to take a look at this going forward. With this, we've addressed some external factors that are affecting your organization right now. So right now, the industry is rapidly growing, but has very thin margins at less than 3%. This is a challenge. This means that it is a challenging industry to succeed in, especially with these large companies competing with you. It is also a volatile industry. It's heavily reliant on the economic performance and economic factors, and this is something that greatly impacts business. There's also the low-cost carriers aspect of this industry is expanding. This is a huge opportunity for you moving forward, especially in the industries, in the markets that you're already pursuing. Additionally, it is highly regulated by the countries. So expanding into multiple countries means that you must factor in the different regulations in local markets as well as on an international level. The key takeaway from these factors is that although it is a challenging industry, it's entirely possible for Granite to become a major player within this industry. I will now pass it off to Miranda to take you through some country analysis.
Okay, so as you already know, you are looking into expanding into some African countries. And so we wanted to run an analysis for you on the country where you are originated from, which is in Canada, and then contrast it to those cultures in Africa, just so you have an idea of some things to consider with this expansion. So I will begin with our analysis on Canada. You probably already know some of these things, but you do have a very low power distance here in Canada. And this means that when you are dealing with employees or other people, you can be personal with them, you can be on their level, and they enjoy that one-on-one interaction with you. Also, Canada is very individualistic, so people like to do things their own. They like having tasks assigned to them, and being able to have their own ideas communicated versus being collectivist and wanting to work as a group and as a whole. So this is something to consider. So the key takeaway here is you just need to compare these cultural preferences to those in Africa, which I will do for you right away. So moving into our analysis on Angola, Burundi, and Oman, the first thing we want to contrast is that power distance. So they actually have a rather moderate power distance here, which means that they'll be flexible to work with. You can deal with them one-on-one, you can give them strict orders as a superior to them. They will be very flexible in working with them as a business partner. So this is a definite advantage to you. The next is that individualism. They're also moderate on this identification. And so this is awesome as well for you because people in these countries will be willing to work alone or as a group. So again, they are very flexible to work with. And then again, that moderate long-term orientation. So this is something to really look into and consider moving forward. They have a moderate orientation. So this means they may, if you open up a business there, they will be quick to back it and they will want to see it sustained through the future. However, if they come through some tough times or some difficulties, they may want to shy away from that opportunity and back out. So it's just something to consider and really make sure you get these people on your side when you do business with them so they want to stick it out. And finally, just something to consider is that differing language. So of course, there is going to be a huge language barrier between the three countries. And we just want to make sure that when you interact with these countries and do business with them, that everything is being communicated properly and there's no language barriers happening or miscommunications. So the key takeaway here would be just that those differences between North American and African cultures are minimal enough and they present a very optimal business opportunity for you. I will now pass things off to Victoria to go through some more analysis for you.
Thank you. So now that we've looked at an external analysis and a country analysis on where you're going and where you are, we can conduct an analysis on your company itself. So the first thing that we notice is that you have a desire to expand into the hardware sales. This is a fantastic opportunity for you since you are in more of the software sales right now. And the partnership with Flygt will give you that. They have hardware that will really expand your horizons here. Next is that you have 30 clients in 3 countries. So you do have experience in this international playing field. You do know what to expect in some of these markets, being in North America, South America. So moving forward, really using your experiences and your lessons learned to really propel yourself into the future and into these new challenges that you might see. And next is you're a very small organization. Here in Canada, you only have 15 employees, so expanding to some of the Great Lakes that you might want to, or this partnership might lead you to, might be difficult to do, and this will have to be considered moving forward. So the key takeaway here is that you have a very experienced team and a very dedicated team. So growing internationally will be very ideal for your company with the right steps. So next we looked into this partnership really with Flygt and what that entailed and what the business was to them. And the first thing that we noticed was that they have this brand new technology. This is top of the line and it's really what the industry and what the world needs in the planes. So they need that real-time technology to make sure that the flights are safe, make sure that all of the airplanes moving forward have the right equipment for them so that all the passengers on board get there safely and they know why they got there safely, and if anything happens, they can fix it as soon as possible. So this company also has a lot of global experience. They are much more globalized than you are right now, so it could create an amazing opportunity for your company while partnering with them. One of the downsides of this company is they are seeing net losses, so this will be a risk while partnering with them of those net losses really affecting their businesses, and you don't have control if it's something their practices are leading you to, or if it's just the economy shifting downwards at this time. And they are a very large company, but there are competitors, so they are somewhat lacking some of the brand recognition that you might want to see in a partner. But overall, the key takeaway is that it might be a risky partnership to invest with Flyte, but overall, they have the global reach that your company needs, and they have the technology to connect you to those growing markets. Next, I will pass it back to Emily to go through our decision criteria of how we came up with some alternatives for you and what our overall recommendation is.
Thank you. So we know that in order to have a plan to achieve excellence, we must involve technology, prosperity, and connections. In order to reach this plan that would bring you there, we came up with 3 primary decision criteria. So the first being that it must be legal. Of course, moving forward, we want to ensure that the company is legal on all fronts going forward and standing in good ethical standing. It must also establish future market potential. So this would be allowing Granite to grow in the market and be prosperous in the future. We want to really set Granite up to establish themselves as a major player. And it must be sustainable for Granite. This would be allowing Granite to grow without overreaching the current potential or the current capabilities that are already existing and growing at a sustainable rate. So our first alternative we came up with, we called the whole package. And this is to bid on all 3 of the contracts, acquire contract insurance, and make the required payments that seemed a little iffy at the time. The advantages of this is that it really does establish the market presence of Granite and Flyte as well. However, there is potential for legal ramifications. It's a really high risk for a small company such as yourselves. It does not fix the Flyte contract, and there's a huge upfront cost to this. So although it does establish future market potential, it is not necessarily legal, and it is not a sustainable practice. So we rejected this alternative. Our second alternative we called the outsider, and this is to enter Oman and Burundi with the proposed Flyte contract that they renegotiated with you. With the information we were given, we came to the conclusion that these 2 payments are on the legal side and that there is justifiable information to proceed with these payments and assume that they are legal. However, we would want to check back with our legal team. Advantages of this recommendation is that it enters new and growing markets and really establishes Granite for the future. However, it is an expensive operation, and it does force rapid growth of the company, as you would need to have employees there or continue sending employees over. So although it may be legal and establishes future market potential, it is not a sustainable practice for your company at this time. So we rejected this alternative as well. Our third alternative, and ultimately our recommendation, we called the teamwork. And this is to enter Oman and Burundi, however, to contract work with PwC and partner with them in order to do groundwork there. Again, we would want to consult with our legal team just to make sure that these payments are above board and everything is safe. And the advantages of this recommendation is that it's a reduced liability for your organization, it's a more cost-effective method, and it enters new markets for your company. However, it may be expensive and you will incur a small loss within the first year, but that is to be expected with entering new markets, and we're sure that this plan will set you up for much more prosperity in the future. So this meets all 3 of our decision criteria, and so we moved forward with this as our recommendation. I will now pass it off to Miranda to take you a little bit more in depth into our recommendation.
So as you know, no solution to any problem comes easily, and so we have developed a recommendation for you today that we really think is going to take your company to that next level and achieve success for you. As Emily mentioned, we really wanted our recommendation today to help you improve your connections, your technology, and set you up for future prosperity. So with this, our recommendation is comprised of 4 main pieces. The first is to do a combination of those requests for proposals that you have. The second is to renegotiate your Flyte contract. The third is to implement a policy management team. And lastly, we want to align your company for future international growth. So moving into our implementation plan, we have the first 3 hours. So as you know, you have that meeting coming up right away, and you need to figure out what you want to do in this meeting. So we really want you to develop an outline for a new proposal. You have the old one, but we're not necessarily happy with it, and we don't think it's the best option for your business. And so we want you to develop a new proposal and to include some things in there such as training, what countries you want to enter, and also contracting some of the work out. And then finally, of course, at the end of these 3 hours, you need to present that updated proposal to the flight. So then moving into our first 100 days, we want you to meet with a lawyer. So we've updated this proposal, and we just want to make sure and guarantee that everything is legal. We have done some research for you, and we do believe that the 2 countries we want you to enter, which will be Oman and Burundi, it will be legal there to take these payment options that they've offered. But we do want you to just meet with a lawyer and really ensure that this is going to be legal and everything will run smoothly. And then after this, we want you to get that contract approval from flight. So we do believe that we have given you, or you will have a very valid and great proposal to present to flight, and that it will be best for both of your businesses. And so this is the point where you will get them to sign that contract, and we do believe they will be willing to sign that. And then after this, you'll need to place that bid. So you've signed the contract, and now it's your turn to place the bid for those proposals and really get your name out there. And finally, at the end of our 100 days, we want you to implement a policy management team. And so these people should be knowledgeable in local customs in all of the countries you are entering and already in. And it should include lawyers from both sides, possibly, just to mitigate any issues that come up. And personnel from both countries, as I said. We believe that this policy management team will really be able to help you in mitigating some cultural issues that may arise or any business practice issues that may arise on either side of each border. So this is something we really think is important for you. I will also point out at this time that we have a running total for our budget at the bottom of the screen, so please feel free to follow along with that as well. Moving into our short-term implementation, we want you to meet with Flight again. So here's where we're going to discuss training and installation of their hardware and software. So as originally wanted, Flight had wanted you to do the training for them into these new countries and new employees. But we think that this is not the right or best fit for you. As you are a very small company, you may not have the human capital to do so or the monetary capital to do so. And so we really want you to discuss with Flight contracting out with PwC so that Flight will train PwC and then they will from there train the employees. We also at this time want to make sure that when you meet with Flight to discuss the training that they will need to do, that you really instill these cultural differences in them so that they know how to train the PwC employees. The cultural differences may be a huge thing for you to consider when training employees, so that they are satisfied with you. And if these employees are not satisfied in the way they are being treated, it could alter your entire contract where things could go awry and things could fall through. So these cultural differences will be just make sure that they are in place and that people are being treated as they would like to be. And we also want you to ensure that the manuals for training you have are correct and updated and as detailed as possible so that there's no ambiguity to how these people will be being trained. And then after this, we want you to pay those sales support costs. So there are many costs involved with moving it forward in this. We just want to make sure they are all paid. As we said, we can negotiate the cost, and it may be a little costly, but we do want you to be ready to pay up to that $18,500, and this is something that you do need to do, and it is non-negotiable. After this, we want you to look at AR policy. So you did mention a concern you had was not getting paid, and so something you want to really make sure is that you can get some AR or accounts receivable insurance, so that if payments don't come through, you have insurance to back up the payments, just as a safe blanket for you. And then after this, we want you to really, you mentioned that there is an airline and aerospace trade show coming up in Frankfurt, and we really think this is a good idea for you to go. It's an awesome opportunity to go out there, bring this new technology to the market. You have that technology, make some connections, let everybody know that you're out there, you have this technology, and it may give you that opportunity to expand in the future with new countries or new options. So we really want you to go to this trade show and meet everybody you can and just get that out there that you have this. Moving into our medium term, we want you to review your contract with PwC. So we just want to make sure that all of the contract requirements and job requirements are met and that everything is running smoothly with Flight. After this, we want you to review your contract with Flight. And so this is where you're going to evaluate the profitability, whether your relationship has been working over the past year, and determine whether you want to continue into the future with this relationship. And finally, we want you to do a check-in. So just check in with that policy management team that we suggested you implement, and just make sure that all the cultural issues as well are running smoothly. There's been no legal ramifications, and just everything is going well and as planned. And then finally, I will pass things off to Victoria to go over our long-term implementation.
Thank you. So our plan today is really to set you up for the future. This is just a bridging stone for future expansions with your company. You want to make sure you're on a solid ground at first and then move through. Part of that is with this contract with Flyte. This partnership is a major roadblock, major stepping stone in your expansion and international strategy. So after that first and second year of really setting it up and putting it in place, we want you to reevaluate it. We want to make sure it's the right business practices for you. And then in the third year, negotiate it. Sign the partnership again for the next 5 years. Make sure the contract terms are reevaluated with your lawyer so that they're in the best interest for your company. Moving forward, I want to bring your eyes to the total budget. We have allocated quite a bit to this budget, but we want to make sure that you're set up for the future. A lot of these costs are contributed just for meetings. Next, I will bring your eyes to some of the future considerations. This is hiring more staff, further expanding with Flyte and further expanding globally. Finally, here are some risks that are very important for your company to consider. I will let you read them through. We can discuss them at a later date. And in closing, I wanted to make sure that you know that we are here to really guide your international strategy so that you achieve excellence, you make those connections with Flyte, you make those connections globally, and overall, you're set up for the future. Thank you so much for your time, and we open the floor to any questions.
Curious about the timeline. I may have misread it, but I'm trying to understand. So you're suggesting that we're going to take 100 days to submit the RFP?
No, definitely not. So the 100-day timeline is just in the first 100 days things that you should do. So the first 3 items on that timeline are things that you should do immediately. So 3 hours you're going to meet with your team. You're going to meet with Flyte to discuss your new contract. After that, you're right away bidding on those contracts and getting that in place.
So can you just explain to me just how you plan on mitigating the risk around the legal issues, just so we understand how we're going to move forward?
Well, in order to mitigate that, we really do want to discuss with the lawyer and really make sure that everything's above board. As I had mentioned, with the information we provided, we're confident that moving forward with these 2 specific countries, those payments that they are requesting are above board and can be justified in the within the legal within the legal world. They are justifiable, they're above board, and so meeting with the lawyer immediately before making those before bidding on those RFPs would be essential, and just making sure that that's all in place.
Our partner Flyte's a rather important piece of the picture, and they've been suffering or having some financial distress the last couple of years. Is there any exposure or risk we should be managing going forward, given their financial troubles?
We believe that with your increased activity with Flyte's technology, that really promoting their brand name will help build their organization as well, and should help bring them out of that financial distress. So really working together, establishing that connection and helping each other out will help Flyte out and in turn help yourself.
One of the things that you mentioned was that it's a difficult construct, it's a complicated construct. Did you look at any other scenarios, either short, medium, or long term, to mitigate that, make that construct a little simpler with the number of players?
I think that what makes this contract and this partnership really complex to start with is dealing with the different countries and those different perceived bribes. What we wanted to do with adding the complexity with PwC contracting our employees is reduce the risk as much as possible between the different layers. So what makes it kind of a lot more confusing is the risk that each layer perceives. To reduce that even further is clear communication between each partnership on what each person's role is. And the new terms in the contract that we've recommended to you will really clear up who's paying for what, who's doing the training, who's making the manuals, that those different aspects to make sure that it's not as confusing moving forward.
Just say a bit more about PWC. It sort of pops in the middle and you don't tell us all very much of what they're actually going to do for you and why you needed them.
So we did look at the contract that you originally had, the original proposal, and Flight had wanted you to not only get them these contracts out in Africa, but they also wanted you to do the training. But they did mention that PWC is there, and so we did just believe that it was an easier option for you and more profitable and just better off with the capital you are given to contract through them to train on behalf of Flight and yourself. So we just believed that this would alleviate any problems you might have with human capital or getting Flight not wanting to train on the equipment that they have. We just believe that contracting it out would be something that might be easier. And as we had mentioned, in the future it may be something that we can consider when we have a higher capital to do ourselves. But for now, we just believe that contracting out that training might be the best option for you.
How do the numbers look on your recommendation?
So we haven't provided the numbers for you today because we wanted to make sure they were absolutely clear, set in stone before we presented them to you. What we saw in our analysis is that in the first year it will cost you a lot more than expected, or a lot more than you had really wanted to. Moving forward, we know that our recommendation will get you the results that you want, and you will be profitable, and you'll be growing with Flight to expand and grow in the future and become extremely profitable.
All right, thank you, judges.